North Korea stands out as perhaps the most difficult country in the world to escape due to a combination of harsh governmental control, physical barriers, and international complicity. The country, ruled by the Kim dynasty for more than 7 decades, is a totalitarian state that employs extreme measures to keep its citizens from leaving. It is not merely the physical obstacles that make escape so perilous, but also the social, psychological, and geopolitical factors that work together to trap millions of North Koreans within its borders. The North Korean government has for decades implemented a meticulous and deeply ingrained system of control over its citizens. At the heart of this system is a pervasive surveillance state. The regime maintains strict control over the lives of North Koreans through a web of secret police, informants, and neighborhood watch groups called Inminban. These groups consist of citizens who are required to monitor and report on the activities of their neighbors. This system of surveillance creates an environment where trust is impossible, even among family members. People are constantly on edge, knowing that any conversation, suspicion, or minor infraction can lead to arrest, interrogation, or worse. The presence of informants means that even discussing the possibility of escape with a friend or relative can result in arrest and punishment for disloyalty to the regime. This ever-present threat effectively stifles dissent and ensures that the desire to flee remains a secret. Punishment for attempting to escape is severe, not only for the individual, but for their family as well. The North Korean regime practices collective punishment, where the relatives of defectors are sent to prison camps, often for life. These camps are notorious for their inhumane conditions, forced labor, and brutal treatment. Families of defectors face imprisonment, torture, and in some cases, execution. This policy of guilt by association is a powerful deterrent. It makes the cost of escape not just personal, but extends to loved ones, creating an ethical dilemma for would-be defectors who know that their actions could doom their family. For many, the fear of punishment for their relatives is enough to keep them trapped, despite their own suffering. Moreover, North Koreans are subjected to intense indoctrination from birth. The regime promotes a cult of personality around its leaders, particularly the Kim dynasty, portraying them as near-divine figures. From childhood, citizens are taught to revere the Kim family and to view any dissent or disloyalty as a betrayal of their country and its leaders. This indoctrination is reinforced through the educational system, propaganda, and mass rallies, creating a society where loyalty to the regime is not just expected, but ingrained into the very fabric of life. Many North Koreans, particularly in rural areas, have little access to information from the outside world and genuinely believe the state's propaganda that conditions in other countries are far worse than in North Korea. This isolation from external information is another factor that traps citizens in place, as they are often unaware of the true conditions beyond their borders. For those who do decide to attempt an escape, the physical barriers are formidable. The country's borders are heavily militarized, particularly the demilitarized zone, DMZ, that separates North Korea from South Korea. The DMZ is not only one of the most fortified borders in the world, but is also one of the most dangerous. Lined with barbed wire, landmines, and soldiers on constant alert, crossing the DMZ is nearly impossible for most defectors. The few who have tried have faced gunfire and the likelihood of death or capture. The South Korean military is also stationed at the DMZ, adding another layer of defense. The border functions not only as a physical barrier, but also as a psychological one. It symbolizes the extreme division between North Korea's isolated authoritarian state and the free, democratic world on the other side. The Chinese border offers slightly more opportunity for escape, but it too is fraught with danger. The Yalu and Tumen rivers form natural borders between North Korea and China, and while less fortified than the DMZ, these areas are still closely monitored by North Korean border guards. These soldiers are under orders to shoot anyone trying to cross into China without permission. During winter, when the rivers freeze, some defectors attempt to walk across, but even then patrols are frequent and vigilant. Crossing into China is only the beginning of the ordeal for most defectors, as China, an ally of North Korea, has a strict policy of repatriating North Korean defectors back to their homeland. Once inside China, Defectors live in constant fear of being captured by Chinese authorities who have a long-standing agreement with the North Korean regime to return defectors. Those sent back to North Korea are often subjected to brutal interrogations, imprisonment in labor camps, and even execution. China's complicity in sending defectors back to North Korea makes it nearly impossible for defectors to remain in China for long. Many must rely on underground networks, often run by missionaries or human rights organizations, to help them reach a third country where they can seek asylum. These networks are dangerous and expensive, often involving travel through multiple countries, such as Laos, Vietnam, or Thailand, where defectors can finally find some safety. Compounding these difficulties is the fact that North Korea is a deeply impoverished country, particularly outside its capital, Pyongyang. Most North Koreans live in extreme poverty with little access to money, food, or basic resources. Defectors, who are typically from rural areas, lack the financial means to bribe border guards or pay smugglers to help them escape. The regime's policy of restricting travel within the country means that many citizens are confined to their local regions, making it difficult for them to even reach the border in the first place. Furthermore, because the government controls nearly every aspect of life, from employment to housing, defectors often do not have the freedom to make independent decisions about their movements or finances. Those few North Koreans who work abroad, such as diplomats or laborers sent to China or Russia by the regime, may have more opportunities to defect, but even they are under strict surveillance. The regime monitors its workers closely, fearing that they might use their foreign positions to escape. Diplomats and workers are often required to leave their families behind in North Korea, ensuring their loyalty through the threat of harm to their loved ones. This creates a complex emotional barrier to escape. Defectors must weigh their own freedom against the certain punishment that will befall their families if they flee. Lastly, the international community's response to North Korean defectors has been inconsistent at best. Countries like South Korea and the United States accept North Korean refugees and provide them with asylum, but the journey to these countries is perilous. Neighboring countries like China and Russia, however, are less willing to offer sanctuary, often prioritizing their diplomatic relationships with North Korea over humanitarian concerns. This geopolitical reality complicates the efforts of defectors who manage to escape the regime but find themselves trapped in hostile territory. The fear of being repatriated back to North Korea by these countries looms large, making the entire escape process fraught with uncertainty. In conclusion, North Korea is the most difficult country to escape because of the unique combination of an oppressive, all-encompassing surveillance state, harsh physical barriers at its borders, collective punishment of defectors' families, and the complicity of neighboring countries like China. Every step of the escape journey, from planning to crossing the border to seeking asylum in a third country, carries immense risks. For the vast majority of North Koreans, these combined factors make the dream of escape almost impossible, trapping them within a regime that demands total loyalty and submission. The result is a nation where fear and repression maintain control, and freedom remains an elusive hope for those under its rule.